Access module number 1, creating a database. My screen in here is from our ebook. So I clicked on the ebook and I opened it. If by chance it opens up in a weird place, always use the top left with those 3 lines. When you click on it, it brings us back to the very first page. And the first page is our lovely table of contents. The ebook does feature some changes that you can do to it, like the font or bookmark. If you'd rather have paper, you can even print everything. You can have the ebook even read to you here with that read speak, and you can change the accents too, which I get a kick out of. This module has 2 different sessions. So as we look through the table of contents, we do have session number 1 in here, where we're really going to understand what is Microsoft Access and how it relates to our relational database. Yes, so in chapter number 1, we were learning about databases, and now we're going to apply it in our first software. And this software, and I know you might argue with me, but it really is easy to use, drag and drop. Plus, we don't do any program language coding. That's what I'm trying to point to get across is how you can have the system do it for you. And then once we're after exam number 1, then we do it through the programming language of SQL. All right, and then we also have session number 2 right in here, which will be in a separate video. So I'm going to turn the page, go to the next page in here. Talks about our objectives of what we're going to learn in this session in here. Now, I do love this page right here, and I know it's small to see, so you can use your Control Plus to make it bigger, or you can hit on the plus side too, which enlarges it, and then you can kind of scroll back and forth. That's nice, right? So I want you to think of each one of these green boxes as like a flashcard. Now, I will have these definitions inside our study mate. And the study mate is where you review, right? We want to read and we want to learn and we want to study, go through those tasks before we do our homework. So each one of these will be in your study mate. All right, let me turn the page. So we are going to learn how to create a database inside of Microsoft Access. Now, who are we working for today? We're going to be working for Donna. Donna and her staff wants to use Microsoft Access to store information about patients, billing, vendors, and products. She needs our help to create the database. Now, here's the wonderful part of these chapters for access, and we cover only 3 of them, but they'll all use this same scenario. I'm not going to flip to a different one and get confusing. It's all the same, and then we just keep building it. So we have to start when we learn a new software with some definitions. Now it's going to feel a little reviewish, but it's always good to do it again and again and again. So database has different tables. Tables are collected for a particular idea because you don't want your table to get too big. Now, a table has these columns and these rows, but it's truly a column is called a field, and then the row is called the record. Now, this textbook does a really nice job too with these images. And I try to put these images back in our theory chapters too, so you can see the connection of it. Right? So the field names are kind of like the column titles, if you want to call it that way, so you can think kind of in Microsoft Excel. Then when you go across that collection of that one row, which is called a record, right? And each record. Now, in this case, we would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 records. You don't include the fields as a record because it's not, it's the title name. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 fields in here. Now, when you go to just a particular cell, now I'm using the word cell because I know a lot of you guys have been in Excel, right? But they're not. In Access, when you look at one particular spot, it's called the focus. So when we look at one spot in here, whatever's in here is either called the data value or the field value when you look for that one intersection of that column and that row. So each one of these tables have to, and I keep talking that they have to talk to each other, meaning they have to relate to each other through a common field. So there's the word common field for you there. And if you notice, the ebook has these orange highlights in here, and that's me. I try to highlight them so as you skim through, you don't go too fast, right? You got to stop on these. So when we have two tables like the one presented in front of us, the way they talk to each other, in other words, I want to pull a query. I want to ask it, give me all the Williams that come into this clinic for an annual wellness visit. The reason isn't located in this table. The reason is in this table called visit. Last name is not located in this table. Last name is located in patient. So in order to pull last name and reason from two different tables, they have to talk to each other. And they talk to each other through a common field. A common field is what we're looking for is a primary key, so a field that cannot be null, cannot be repeated, has to be unique. When this same field shows up in another field, but where it can be null, it can be repeated, we make a relationship between these two, which we'll get to. We'll get to this chapter because there's a lot of different types of relationships you can make. Then they can talk to each other. And this textbook does a really good job too to confirm what we're learning. So it talks about the primary key, also talks about your foreign key in there too. So a database management system, and you're going to hear me say this again and again and again, these darn initials, and you do have to know what they are. So it's some kind of software that lets you create the database and then manipulate them. I always relate this idea to the ERP system, the Enterprise Resource Planning System that runs your company. Where you worked at, think about that, where you punched in and punched out, or when you hit enter, that system is their database management system. That software is it. Okay. What's nice about a database management system that it also allows these other wonderful things to happen without hardcore coding. So it lets you create structures, add records, change records. It also has a query language built in where you drag and drop and you don't program. You can create reports, make them professional. Again, no coding in there. And then it also has some security. So certain people can only log into certain, we call them like modules, or in Access, they're called objects. And then what about backup too? Now here's the fun part in here. When you work in Microsoft Excel, truly the not online software, but the one that's the one-on-one, you really only can have one person work on it. You hit save and then you send it to somebody else. They work on it, they hit save, they send it back to you. Because you only really can have one person logged into that file at the same at one at a time. But Access is different because it's a database. It wants to share the data. So look at this. You can have up to 255 people open up that one file all at the same time. So when I make a change, you see the change. When you make a change, I see the change. Now, we will learn what an object is. Access can have up to 32,768 objects. Think of it like as tables in one file. It is hugical. You truly could run a small company in Microsoft Access if you have enough knowledge really to create it strong. I know it's it is amazing. Now, I don't expect you to remember this exact number. I do expect you to remember the difference between 32,000 and 255. All right, let's open up Excel. Now, the textbook here is just lovely. It goes step by step. So for those of you that don't want to listen to the or watch and listen to the videos, you can stop right now, follow the book without me, right? And you can walk step by step with Microsoft Access. Please note, Access is not a Windows, or sorry, Microsoft Access is a Windows only software. It is not compatible with the um, all right, let me try that again. I kind of messed that up. All right, Microsoft Access is a Windows only program. It is not compatible for my Mac platform. Now, that's not me being evil. That's really not Microsoft being evil. It's that the Mac operating system cannot handle database functions yet. There's always a yet, because someday, who knows, maybe it can. So, my Mac people, you do have to use Citrix if you want to walk through the textbook. Our homework is Mac friendly because it opens up inside of Cengage in an online browser window. So you would be okay for that. So the choice is yours. All right, let's open up Access. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Access. You guys go down to your search bar, type in Access, and it's a interesting program because usually when you open up Word or Excel or even PowerPoint, you can start typing right along and then bam, you're in, right? You can just start. Access does not work that way. Why does it not work that way? Because you have the 255 users. So you have to create a file name and save it right away. So it always opens up in this screen, meaning where do you want to work? So I want to do a blank database, but then see right here, it has to have a name. So we're going to call this one Lakewood. You can change the folder location if you want to. So I think maybe I'll just put it on my desktop for now, right? Notice your file path, make sure you saved it where you want to, and then I hit create. And here we are. We are in Access. Let me scoot my screen over just a tad there. Okay. Now, the interesting thing about Access, it feels and looks like Excel, but it is not Excel at all, okay? Up on top is the title bar. It tells me my file name. Then I go over to the side and I click on File. File takes me in that backstage view. Then I can arrow back in here. Let's go to Home. Now, I know you're like, wait, it looks like Excel. It's not. It's Microsoft, so of course they use the same features. So we have the menus, we have the ribbons, we have the groupings like you're used to, but we have this thing called objects. So I'm going to click on Create. Now, I wish they would make these a little bit bigger and bold. Remember, we have 32,000 objects in Access. Objects are tables, queries, forms, reports, and then macros. All right, now we are going to work a lot right in here. It also has a pane of your work window, and then we have this little guy here called the shutter bar to give us more space. What it opens and closes is called the navigation, because you always have to tell Access where do you want to work, and all of your objects would show up over here on the left side. And then when you click on an object, over here is what you're working on. See, it's different, very different. All right, I'm going to go and just take a look at the other menus. We have external data, so you can bring in records from different sources. You also can take your tables and export them in other types. We have database tools inside here too, where we're going to work with relationships. There's always help, which is wonderful. And then this item, my table tools and field and tables, will change depending on which of the objects we're currently working on. So we are currently working on a table, so that's why table tools came up. All right, we're going to stop right here, and then when we come back in the next video, we're going to create the visit table.